there's no doubt the Edmonton Oilers are one of the best teams in the league. But Craig, the one big question for Edmonton is, what do they need to do to go from contender to champion?
They have the general manager, Ken Holland, who has had to answer that exact question in his stint as the Detroit Red Wings general manager. So you point out all the positives they have. They have superstars in their lineup. They have some real strength of balance. The trade for Matthias Ekholm was fantastic. Now Ken Holland has to fill in the depth, has to fill in around the edges to give them more strength. The Vegas Golden Knights, who the Edmonton Oilers were very competitive with, showed how important it is to be deep on the blue line and to have four lines that can really take significant portions of the game and make it uncomfortable for their opponents. McDavid's going to do that. Draisaitl's going to do that. Deeper in the lineup, the ability to do that will put them in a better position. Ken Holland knows exactly what the template looks like. Now it's up to him to go out and find those players to support a team that is a serious Stanley Cup contender.
Craig, you talk about the forwards. Let's work from the forwards back. We've heard this for years in Edmonton. They need more depth. They need to round out the rest of their roster up front to deal with the stars. Like we just saw Vegas, that four-line kind of attack. I think it has to come from two places. Obviously, it has to come from within. If you can get some of these young players, whether it's a Yamamoto or a Holloway, like if those guys can take a step, that would be significant because then you don't have to pay to go get somebody from outside the organization, which is going to cost you dollars and assets. That's going to be hard to do, but you need some internal growth and then maybe augmentation from the outside. On the blue line, Craig, that's where I'm willing to swing and swing big outside the organization. I think they need one more top four defenseman. Ekholm, you saw what Ekholm did for Bouchard and that defense. You saw how much better they looked when Ekholm arrived. If they could get another Ekholm-like player, maybe a Brett Pesce, somebody like that to slot in that top four, and that would be bold and that would be costly, but then that top four defense would be locked in with Nurse and Bouchard and Ekholm and whoever the other person might be. You can have the depth guys would be pretty fine, which would then lead us to the goaltenders, Craig. And I think in some level, while Stuart Skinner had a great year last year, an all-star kind of year, Jack Campbell did not work out. Craig, do they have to do anything to their goaltending to make sure that they are solid in that position heading into next year?
I have a lot of faith in Stuart Skinner. I think he showed unequivocally that he can be a solid number one goaltender. You look at the last 2 months of the regular season, he took the ball and he ran with it. Jack Campbell had his ups and he had a lot of downs. And what you're hoping for with Jack Campbell now on that long-term contract is that he can find that form again to support Stuart Skinner. I think Stuart Skinner has shown that he's the number one goaltender. Grant Fuhr said that in his rookie year he was good. He got to the playoffs and he wasn't very good. We know what Grant did after that. I feel Stuart Skinner can do exactly that. You know, when you talk about Brett Pesce, I think that that's a real significant part of building your team and strengthening it in other areas. Strengthening it in the goaltending position. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights. Those 6 defensemen were so good. They rotated goaltenders through there, not because they weren't good enough, but because of injuries. And every single goaltender went in there and was able to perform to their capabilities. That's what a Brett Pesce does. He takes some burden off of Darnell Nurse, like Ekholm took some burden off of Evan Bouchard. And that's what deeper down the lineup in your forward group can do as well. Dylan Holloway, I think, is a real significant player here that can push it forward. And then what else can you add? But I am 100% with you, Mike, with respect to adding another top four defenseman. A lot of people don't know how good Brett Pesce is. You do, and this would make the Edmonton Oilers that much better as a serious Stanley Cup contender.
And maybe that's something we learned, Craig, about Vegas. You don't need top 5 goalies in the league when you have a great team defensive concept. And I think with a couple subtle additions, they can have a little bit more support for their goaltenders. So they don't need to do as much. Whoever is in net, and they can go with the guys they have right now and not spend assets or buyouts to try to change their goaltending situation. But the good news, Craig, for the Edmonton Oilers is they have the pieces that are hardest to get. The superstars, the offensive talent, the high-end guys, the great young defenseman in Bouchard. They have all those pieces. The challenge for Ken Holland and the Edmonton Oilers is tinkering around the edges, getting stronger, and maybe one more impactful defenseman, and they could very well make the transition from contender to champion.